Welcome to Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose. Today we're going to talk about the doctors that come to your house and the future trends in healthcare. To help me out with that topic, I have Hank Ross here with Physicians House Calls. Hank, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Katherine, for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
So let's hear a little bit about your background and how you ended up here.
Well, I've been working in healthcare since I was 16 years old. I started as an orderly in the emergency room in my little small town in Oklahoma. And then I was going to be an aspiring physician. And then once I got to college and started doing that kind of work, I decided that's not what I wanted to do. So I ended up with a business degree and an MBA. And then I joined the Air Force. The Air Force is the largest healthcare provider in the world. And I got to see that healthcare delivery system through the military. I was actually deployed to Desert Storm and some other things. And then I was a hospital administrator for almost 15 years. And then my wife and I were living in Edmond, Oklahoma, and we wanted to start our own company. So about 2000, we started a hospice, home health, private duty company called Ross Healthcare. We were fortunate enough to have some great people along the way help us build that business. And we built that to be probably the third largest home care company in Oklahoma. And then we had this physician house call thing on the side, and we were very intrigued about the future of home-based primary care medicine, is how they refer to it today. And so we sold our other company in 2017. We put all our efforts into physician house calls. We were fortunate enough to meet Angie Keene with Mobile Medical here in Wichita, and we were able to join with Angie's company in December of 2019. We brought in some equity people along the side, and so we're one of the largest providers of house calls for home-based primary care medicine in the country.
Very good. So tell us a little bit about what primary home-based care means.
What we do is we bring the doctor to you. This is just like going to your physician in a fixed wall practice, but what we really concentrate on is we take care of those people who are normally homebound, who have mobility issues. We normally take care of people who are really, we were talking earlier, there's this 5% of the Medicare beneficiaries who consume 60% of the healthcare resources. These are people who are very acute chronic disease people in their home. And what happens is, with all the great physicians out there and all the great physicians in fixed wall practices, lots of times the patient just can't get to the doctor on a routine basis. So what we have found is by delivering home-based primary care medicine, we come to you in their home. By the way, Medicare pays for this 100%. We're able to take care of the patient from a primary care standpoint in their home. And what that allows us to do, Katherine, is we get to see, obviously, their setting in their home. We get to see their support system. Lots of times there's all kinds of economic, social issues with that. And so by providing the care in the home, we get more of a rounded view of the patient's healthcare needs. Sometimes it's not healthcare. Sometimes it's food scarcity or other issues. But by being in their home and seeing them in that environment, we're able to take on the holistic approach with the patient. And it makes us a lot better caregivers. If you're with a primary care physician, normally their panel size is around 5,000 patients. Our panel size with our caregivers, our providers, is about 180. So we spend a lot of time in the home. We try not only to take care of your medical issues, but any other social economic issues. And by delivering that holistic approach into your home, the patient has better outcomes. They have higher satisfaction. They want to be in their home. They don't want to leave their home. And we're really able with other resources, hospice, home health, private duty, DME, mobile oxygen, mobile lab, mobile x-ray, we're really able to allow you to age in place, to age in your own home. And so that's what home-based primary care medicine does.
Well, very good. And you're right. So many people want to stay in their own home. And whether it's the home maybe that you've lived in for years and years, or a home that you moved to so that you can age in place, that's really something. No wonder if some doctors have 4,000 to 5,000 patients, why it seems so busy, hard to get into, and rushed. And if home-based healthcare
Right.
is seeing closer to
Right.
200 patients, what a difference that
And the
is.
most of the patients that those doctors see in those fix do a wonderful job, right? They're people who are relatively healthy. Again, we're taking care of that 5% of those patients who are really sick and really need more time to assess their needs. And so,
Okay.
again, by being in their home, we can do that. You know, I've been working with seniors all my life, and I'm very passionate about services to the home. If you've really had followed the last few years, because of the great outcomes, and this is where seniors want to be, and because so many other people want to age in place, there's all kinds of movement into the home. I would probably argue today that home-based care services is one of the fastest medical growing services in healthcare today, because this is where people want to be. But in reality, we live in this very fragmented, hard to navigate healthcare system. And what we find ourselves doing most of the time is seniors have availability of all kinds of resources to come to their home. They're just not aware of what's available. And so by providing home-based primary care medicine, I always refer to us, we're the quarterback, right? We have all these other players on the team to bring care into the home, but we're the ones writing the orders and determining what that patient needs, which is the right care level at the right time. But by being in the home, and it may be stuff like Meals on Wheels to oxygen therapy or whatever that is, by us coordinating that care into the home, it takes their fragmentation out. They don't have to go out and find all those individual service lines. They don't have to determine what do I need right now. By us being at home, being a patient of our services, we help them navigate that decision making.
Just aging in general is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's so complex. And so having people that come to you and can explain all the different services and options that you can have and access to. Otherwise, how do people find out about all of these different options? It's not easy.
It's very difficult. And to rely on your physician or loved ones to do that, you know, we're the experts in this area. So let us come into the home, assess your needs, and do that. So many of our seniors had food scarcity issues. I always tell this story. The number one reason why you're readmitted into the hospital once you leave a hospital, which is about 30% nationwide, is you get home and you have this list of medications that the hospital sent with you. Well, then you get home and then you have another list of medications that you're probably your primary care physician or your subspecialist are prescribing for you. Then I always kind of joke, then you have a shoebox full of medication. So, you know, one of the first things that we do when we enter someone's home, called polypharmacy, is that we line out all their medications for them so they can properly take the right medication at the right time and discard all this medication they don't need anymore. So, you know, just by being in their home and seeing those environmental situations or concerns, we're able to provide those types of services.
I'm glad you brought up medication because there's so much conflict involved, maybe with yourself, like what am I supposed to take, and not feeling like you're doing everything on time, or conflict between spouses, and if you're going to help each other or not help each other, and it can be, you know, cause a lot of stress. And then adult kids or other caregivers, and so medication's really a challenge when you're having all these things hit you at once.
Well, you're also talking about communication, right? And so when most patients go to a physician's office, it's usually someone had to take off work, spend a half a day, take them to the doctor's office, which, by the way, during COVID, there's a lot of issues with that. Then the doctor will see you for 6 to 10 minutes, and then you might have one loved one with you in the exam room. And, the communication aspect of what we do is fairly complicated. And for a senior to really be able to ascertain all that information is many times, very difficult. And again, I want to say that physician services in offices are wonderful services. But again, with the population we work with, is fragile, chronic disease, non-mobility type population. When we're in the home and then we're talking with the caregivers. And then we sit around the kitchen table and we talk about what's going on with the patient, or what's going on with the caregiving. And we're just able to make much more informed decisions about, most importantly, what the patient wants going forward, right? And then we bring the caregivers in that whole atmosphere of discussion. So by involving not only the patient, but the caregivers, but their environmental situation, we're just able to make much better decisions.
It sounds like it takes a lot of pressure off, where more people can be involved and it's right there in your home. It's stressful loading up to get in the car and go someplace and be there for those appointments, and it can turn into an all-day exhausting ordeal, really.
I've done that. I've taken this whole journey with my parents, with two of my brothers. I had a priest brother, Catholic priest brother, who passed away about a year and a half ago, but he had Parkinson's disease, and he was in an assisted living center. And fortunately, I was able to intercede and help navigate through this very complicated system. But when we're able to bring the care into their domain or their home, where they feel comfortable, where they can sit there and pet their dog, and where they can provide all these other environmental issues, they just get better.
Well, it's pretty cool to know you don't have to live by that calendar. I've got to go here to get labs. I've got to go here to get images, and just all that stress, and that maybe this can be coordinated and come to your house.
We bring that to your home.
Do people ever have hesitancy in allowing strangers to come to their home? Like, it might seem more private that we're going to get in the car and go somewhere, and allowing people to come in might feel odd.
No, that's a very good point. And this doesn't work for everybody. There are some people who just don't want people in their home. But once we enter a home, and obviously they're reaching, if they call our service, they're reaching out for help. They need help with something. And once we can build that trust with the patient moving forward in their home, and as we can insert other caregivers into the home, and we would never not do all those things without the patient agreeing to do those services, right?
Right. And
they're the boss, and they're in charge, and that's one of the first things you have to establish when you're dealing with a senior or someone in that condition. As long as you can make your own decision making, you're going to do that.
Well, that's good. Since we're called Empowered Senior, or empowering seniors, that's what we like. We like people to be in control of their own life.
Right.
That's very important to get the information they need to be able to make good decisions and make their own decisions for themselves. So that's perfect. And when you say we, you're talking about your industry, not necessarily your company.
Correct.
Because we have viewers all across the state of Kansas and beyond, people that could be watching years from now, streaming in any part of the country. So you're talking about, in general, this is a huge trend coming to us. And what are some of the goals that our government might have for us?
Well, interesting, everything's kind of driven by financial, economic concerns lots of times. And, it's when I talk to people about this subject, I like to say kind of three things when I'm talking to lay people about healthcare. And one thing is that we have 5% of these people we're talking about, these very chronic disease patients, who consume 60% of our healthcare resources.
Okay.
So
that's the first thing.
A very small segment.
Okay.
And that leads into, we spend 19% of our economy is driven by healthcare, whereas most countries it's about 10 to 12%.
Okay.
So we get this really small population of people who are in and out of the hospital, in and out of the ER. By deploying home-based primary care medicine and other services into the home, we can keep them out of those really expensive care settings.
Okay.
Get the care they need, get the right care at the right time. We're not giving them what they need, but we do it to a different fashion. So that's the first thing.
Okay.
And then the second thing I tell people is, in the last 6 months of your life, you'll spend 70% of your lifetime healthcare dollar.
Okay.
So think about that. We're not very good about end-of-life care issues, and we kind of send you to all these places, we do all this testing.
Like just extraordinary expense and measures.
And no one's
trying to hang on.
quarterbacking that care. No one's talking to each other. And I have talked to so many different families and my own personal loved ones. Do you really need to do this? And what do you want as a patient?
Because it comes down to quality of life.
Right.
Because so you can spend, and that doesn't mean it's going to make your life more comfortable or happier. Right. Okay.
And what I find is that most seniors and family members, they don't challenge our healthcare system. Well, the doctor told me I need to go do this.
They don't know they need to challenge.
Correct.
Because usually medical is just going to keep sending you here and there and keep selling you these services because they want to make you happy. They want to make the family happy. And so if you don't ask enough questions or know, wait a minute, is this going to help or not help? Is this going to make my life better or not better?
Always ask the questions. And I always tell seniors, if you can have an advocate with you, this is very complicated, hard information. And having 4 years versus 2 years is always a better thing to do. But so when you look at the small population consuming these resources, then we don't do a very good job towards end-of-life care issues. If we could do those two things more effectively and do that what the patient wants, I find so many times that when I'm talking with patients about end-of-life care issues, when you get to the family members who are usually the ones pushing back on these really needed discussions. When you get to the patient, now you ask a patient, what do you want? They'll normally say, I want to stay home. And I don't want to go back in the hospital. And I want to be with my loved ones. And I don't want to be in and out of doctor's offices. They'll tell you exactly what they need. And so when those things happen, we bring in palliative care, hospice services. But as you mentioned, there's a whole industry, home health services, durable medical equipment, oxygen therapy, lab, x-ray. And now, Katherine, we got this technology, remote patient monitoring, whereas we can put a blood pressure cuff in your home. If you have congestive heart failure, you can stand on a scale, and if you gain 3 or 4 pounds, that's electronically sent to us. And we can call you and say, hey, you need to increase your diuretics, you need to increase your water pill. There's all these interventions that we can do with you in the home as we monitor you electronically, which prevents you calling an ambulance, prevents you going to the emergency department, prevents you from calling a loved one, trying to get to a doctor's office. The technology part of all this has really been fascinating, has really excelled over the last 3 or 4 years, where we're able to properly take care of you in the home. One of the fastest movements is hospital at home.
Okay, hospital.
And if you start reading about this, is that there's all kinds of hospital systems who are moving patients from the hospital into the home. And most of those stays are pretty short, 4 or 5 days. They send in the necessary equipment, practitioners to do that, but they want to be in their home where they feel more safe, more secure, and in the end, they get better outcomes.
Well, and then you get to decide which family members can be there versus what the hospital tells you.
Right.
And like you said, have your pets. So did we cover your third item? So you talk about 5% and the 60.
Right.
Okay.
Very good. You're catching on. And we talk about end-of-life care, palliative care.
Okay.
Right. This is moving the cost curve. And really, the third thing is that it's the cost efficiency of serving people in their home versus very expensive hospital settings. I mean, hospitals are just expensive places by design. I ran hospitals for a year. They're a very necessary place to be. We need people in intensive care units and everything else in hospitals, but a lot of patients who are in post-surgical wards, who are in medical wards, could be properly and medically served in the home at a fraction of the cost.
Okay.
And so if you do those 3 things together, you do serve this really high needs population, you're honest about end-of-life care issues, and we take people who can be served in their home, who can be served in more expensive care settings, we can change our whole healthcare system. That's why I do this. Honestly, I was going to retire about 5 or 6 years ago, but I'm so passionate about the in-home care movement. I serve on several national boards. I'm trying to advocate for these types of services as much as possible. And in the end, it's better for the seniors and the patient.
Well, if you talk about empowering, that does require more information and that honesty so that people really know what direction to go and just really have some candid conversations. I think that's very important.
Make your wishes known, empowering the seniors. You know, we're talking about why is all this care moving to the home, and you know, part of the forces behind that were some of the things that we talked about in terms of these, you know, 3 highly cost things that we can do in the home. But the other thing is, we're in a broken system. We're in this what they call fee-for-service system in our healthcare system today, which means the more times I see you, the more things I do to you, the more we get paid. And we're moving away from a fee-for-service system to what they call a value-based system. We're going to pay a provider based on outcome, quality, costs, patient satisfaction, those types of things. So by 2030, CMS, or the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, has made it a goal. They want every Medicare beneficiary in a value-based proposition. And we're working with several new models out there, to physician house calls, to hospice and palliative care. But they're doing this because the system we have is really broken and fragmented, and we need to take more of a holistic approach with the patient. And so all that's being moved by 2030 is a goal for CMS, but that's been really a catalyst to move a lot of this care in the home because, again, it's where the patient wants to be. The outcomes are normally much better. You get a much holistic approach with the patient. You're attacking the social, economic skills. So this is going to happen.
Okay.
Right? So the way we've been doing healthcare in the past is not going to continue. We got to move into these different payment models. But I'm an advocate for those payment models because in the end, the patient gets what they need where they want the care to be delivered. And that's the most important thing to me, that seniors can really direct their own health care, and these models allow us to deliver more of this care into the home.
Very good. So today, when people are thinking about, I really want to ask the right questions of my doctor so I really get the answers I need to hear, what are some questions that they can pose to their doctor to kind of prompt that conversation?
Well, first of all, your doctor has your best interest in heart, right? But again, we're in a system that sometimes that's not conduit for them to really spend the time with you as they need to. I think just general question, is that really necessary? How will that change my prognosis? Will that improve my quality of life? If I don't do that, how will that affect my family and loved ones? And so, or can you put this in writing to me and so I can share this narrative with my family? So much of this stuff is verbal. If you can just ask the doctor to do a note or something verbal, you can bring that home and discuss it. So, look, being a physician is the greatest thing in the world in my book, and the vast majority of them are wonderful caregivers, but they're inflicted by a system that doesn't allow them to take a lot of this personal time with the patient. And sometimes, because of all the subspecialty work we do, there's no one really, again, quarterbacking the care. So it's okay to ask those questions. And by the way, your physician should not be offended by that. And sometimes you might want to say, I want a second opinion. The good physicians who are really confident about their decision making, if you ask for a second opinion, they're going to say, certainly, let me make a referral for you.
Okay.
So I think it's okay to do that. They're great caregivers. Obviously, they're highly trained in medicine, but sometimes they understand, again, the social, economic challenges that you're facing. Sometimes they understand the caregiving environment that you're facing in the home. It's very, they don't have all that information to make those decisions. So I think it's okay to ask those questions.
Hank, those are great questions and great advice. Thank you so much for being on the show and helping us to empower seniors.
Thank you.
And if you have more questions about this topic or any others, please reach out to us at empoweringseniors@kpts.org, or you can call us at 316-686-4500. This is Empowering Seniors. I'm Katherine Ambrose, and we'll see you next time.